My fellow Americans, I think we all know where this is going, so let's just skip to the end.
Mega Man X6. Oh boy, this has been a long time coming. Friends who are watching this video probably know what they are getting into with this one. No spoilers for the people who aren't watching this. I goddamn hate this game. Last time we talked about X in terms of mainline games. I said that Mega Man X5 was a messy game that I really enjoy, but I also mentioned that KJ Inafune wanted to be the last game in the Mega Man X series, but we are in the timeline where all goes to shit and barely recovered. Now, Mega Man X6 is like Mega Man X5, where we don't know much about the development of it, aside from the fact that it was released 1 year after X5 was released. And from what the X Complete Works book has told us, that Inafune had no idea that X6 was being made, since most likely he was focusing all his time on his favorite child sub-series, the Mega Man Zero series. So he had to rewrite the story of the Zero series to reflect Mega Man X6. But we could get into that when we talk about the Zero series on this channel later down the line. Another thing we know from the Complete Works book is that the people working on the game had a super tight schedule, which goes to show that this was the start of Capcom rushing Mega Man games out to market, leading to meddling to low returns unless your name is the Battle Network series that got its start before Mega Man X6. This is one of the best-selling Mega Man games, and that bothers me. But the game came out 1 year later, on November of 2001. I played X6 almost immediately after playing Mega Man X5 in 2020, and it was one of the most frustrating games I have ever played at the time, with moments that made me stop playing games for days on end. Now, I have played games that infuriate me more, or have gained a better perspective on them that I didn't, but I can still say that X6 is one of the most frustrating games I have played in my life. After I played X6, I took a break from playing Mega Man games and moved on to other stuff like Marvel's Spider-Man, one of my personal favorite games I wish to talk about in this channel. Even after playing Mega Man X7, what is deemed the worst Mega Man game ever made alongside the Mega Man DOS games, I still thought X6 was worse than it. But now, I am an adult, or at least I say I am an adult, but still, I am an adult. And I have played more games since 2020. And my taste in games have evolved, and some people have tested me on Mega Man X6 being one of my least favorite games ever made. I wonder if X6 is going to be better than I remember back when I replayed it in 2022 for my first ever Zero run. So without further ado, let's get started. I won't watch you. I'll never go down. I just know. The setup of Mega Man X6 is that it has been 3 weeks since the good ending of Mega Man X5, even though it was 3 years in X5, but let's not worry about that. And we follow a Reploid named Gate, who is at the crash site of the Eurasia Space Colony. While researching the impact site, he discovers an unusual piece of wreckage and brings it back to his lab. A week later, Gate starts to lose his sanity as he secretly experiments on the mysterious item he found and declares his intention to turn Earth into a utopia for high-class Reploids. We then follow X, who has a nightmare involving Zero before he is woken up by Alia, telling him that there is a disturbance near the crash site. One intro stage later, we see a purple-looking Zero when a new robot comes in called Hymax, who says he is looking for Zero. We then get a cutscene of Isaac, who tells the Reploids that he and Hymax are in search of the Zero-like being dubbed the Zero Nightmare, which is spreading a dangerous nightmare virus that causes Reploids to falsely perceive reality to the point of harming themselves and others, turning them into mavericks. Isaac invites all Reploids to join his cause to destroy the Nightmare virus and dispatches 8 Reploids, who he calls Nightmare Investigators, to investigate areas with high Nightmare virus activity. X follows the investigators to the suspected areas themselves and fights them as they become infected, setting up Mega Man X6. I will say that when I first played Mega Man X6, I found this out to be very interesting. A new character who looks to be the main villain that isn't just Sigma again for the whoever, how many fucking times he's been there, villain, and a Zero-like being that might be a part of the aftermath of Mega Man X5. It was a very good first impression. But then we got to the actual game part of the game. Mega Man X6 starts with you playing as X, There is no option for you to pick either X or 0 in this game, unlike Mega Man X4 and Mega Man X5. Now, is there anything new to X when it comes to his base moveset? Well, there is. At the end of the canon ending of Mega Man X5, X decides that he will keep Zero's saber, and that has carried over to the gameplay of Mega Man X6. When you are playing as X and you don't have a special weapon equipped, you can use the Z saber. I think this is a cool idea. X's Z saber move is a single slash, showing that he's not as fast with it as Zero, but it does do a good amount of damage, I would say. But overall, he is the same X as we know him, not much to him. Spoiler alert, Zero is in this game, and you can unlock him. Zero is the more interesting character to talk about when it comes to gameplay differences, because Zero got some new sprite animations. Zero in X4 and X5 had the same sprites, so they essentially played the same. But in X6, Zero has new attack sprites for both ground attacks and air attacks. The 3-hit combo is a good comparison. The 3-hit combo in X4 and X5 has the first 2 swings be on a medium length, while the last hit is a shorter length it can easily be cancelled out of. The 3-hit combo in Mega Man X6 has the first 2 swings be the shortest swings, while the final one is the longest to cool down. It's also different because in Mega Man X4 and Mega Man X5, the final string was straight, while the final swing in X6 is more upwards with how the saber is facing. These new animations for Zero means that it is much easier to saber dash cancel than in Mega Man X4 and Mega Man X5, because the animations were slower in those games. There is also Zero C Buster. This was a move that I was not a big fan of in Mega Man X5. The shot was slow and it did pay off with the amount of damage that it would deal with. But in X6, I think they corrected it too much that it's basically a crutch. The shot still travels the same speed, but the problem is that it does as much damage as a special weapon, which makes it not at all balanced whatsoever. I guess it can be fun to use, but we could save that for when we get to the bosses in this game. Overall, I see it as this. Do you want to play as someone who is better with a gun or better with a sword? That's really all that it comes down to. But they still use the other options, but talking about the controls in the third PS1 Mega Man X game is not going to be all that different. So let's just move on to the presentation and the music. I said that Mega Man X4 is one of the best looking side-scrollers on the PS1, and I would say the same thing with Mega Man X5. Mega Man X6 for me feels like more of the same. Not to say that the game looks bad whatsoever, but more so it didn't really do much for me in terms of what the PS1 could do. I never thought Mega Man X could make a museum look so boring. Now I know this is gonna be a hard thing for y'all to hear, but I am not a big fan of the soundtrack in this game. I've said in the past that Mega Man X3 on PS1, X4, and X5 are my favorite soundtracks in the Mega Man sound library, but the tunes in X6 are ones I rarely, if ever, go back to, and it doesn't help that I prefer my Mega Man X songs to be more geared towards faster speed than the stop and go nature of the levels. But there are some songs in this game I can jam out to. One thing I also want to mention is that there is a new intro theme in the second Legacy Collection version of this game, and I very much prefer it over the original version. Now, let's get into the meat of a Mega Man game with the levels. I said in Mega Man X5 that I enjoyed the levels a lot more than most people, but I cannot say anything nice about most, if not all, of the levels in Mega Man X6. I have a problem with almost all of them. So I will talk about each and every one of them individually. Now, before I do that, I will say some positive things. The opening stage is actually a pretty good opening stage that shows you how to use the mechanics of the Z-Saber with these metal boxes, and has a pretty good first boss. And in X5, Alien would sometimes call you during the stage, and you would just stand there and smash the X button until you got back to the actual stage, which just made the level pacing go down the drain for a few seconds. In Mega Man X6, they omitted that in the regular stages, instead choosing to let you decide if you want to call Alia for some help on the stage, which I think is for the better and the best way to handle Ilia. Okay, now to bitch about this game. The first stage I always do when I play this game is to go to Commander Yamark's stage. Now, this is one of the more okay stages in the game. It's very simple at first, but then the cracks start to show around the halfway point of the stage. At this section, the camera will not focus on what's below you, and you could fall into the spikes. Since you won't be able to see anything below you, but other than that, this level is just very dull to go through. Nothing exciting or interesting happens in it, so it's just an okay level. Next is Ground Scaravage. Ground Scaravage has a pretty interesting level set piece. It's a museum which has been done in the classic series of Mega Man 7, but not in the X series before from what I can recall, but it couldn't save the stage. Now, the idea behind this stage is that you go into these cyberspace areas and then destroy these poles. The problem is that these are RNG based. You may get one run that has these levels, but then you will have another one with another set of levels. Let's put it this way. You want to grab everything in this level, the heart tank and the armor capsule. You get a run where you only got the armor capsule, but no heart tank. You would then have to go back and do the level again to find the heart tank, but the problem is that you might not get the heart tank on the next run of the level. If you want to get past a certain section of the endgame without the shadow armor, then you will need to find a certain rescuer Reploid that has that particular part. And guess what? There might be a chance you won't get that Reploid because this thing's RNG based. I've always hated RNG in platformers, and this was probably the root to all of that hate. The next stage I want to talk about is Shield Sheldon. Bazinga! Now, this is a very short stage if you aren't going for the alternate path, but the problem with this stage, aside from the length, is the laser puzzle. This is one of the most annoying puzzles I have ever dealt with. What you have to do is align the panels so that the laser can hit the sensor on the door. The problem is that the laser will sometimes not point towards you. This just leads to frustration and boredom at the same fucking time. How the fuck is that possible? You want to talk straightforward? We talk about Infinity Maginian. This is barely a fucking level. At least with Shield Sheldon there was a puzzle aspect to it. There's almost nothing with Infinity Maginian. All you have to do is run forward, destroy these cores, and not get hit by this transformer looking ass robot. That is the stage. Enjoy or don't enjoy it. That's how this fucking works. Is it time to complain about Blaze Hitnix? Yeah? Great, let's do this. Blaze Hitnix is one of the worst stages in the game for one specific reason. These Ouroboros bosses, not the good Ouroboros bosses from Xenoblade Chronicles 3, one of the best games ever fucking made, but the bad Ouroboros bosses from this game. You have like a minute of an actual level and then boom, fight this thing. He does the same thing over and over again, move and shoot. I wouldn't mind it if it was a one-time mid-stage boss, but you fight him so many times that you just want the stage to end. It's Now, I don't have much to say on both Blizzard Wolffang and Rainy Turtleoid. They're both okay levels with not much going on. Wolffang is more stop and go, while Rainy Turtleoid is overall a more autopilot level for me. Okay, I saved the words for last because it is that bad. Metal Shark Player. The entire stage has one gimmick, which is that there is a crusher on the top of the screen, and you need to make sure that you don't get crushed. Okay, seems simple enough, until you learn that there are so many fucking enemies on the screen, rescuable Reploids in areas that can kill you, ice physics, and more spikes than the clothing aisle from your local Hot Topic. This will all lead to death, 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 saying the F-bomb 15 times, and of course, death. This is one of the worst stages in the game, easily one of my least favorite levels in any Mega Man game. If people say Mega Man 9 is unfair, make them play this stage. They will literally get an aneurysm just by playing it. Now, these levels are still the same levels, unless you have the Nightmare System on. After the second level is completed, the Nightmare System will be activated. After beating a certain levels will have a red logo on them, which means that they are under the Nightmare System. When you play a level with this on, there will be negative effects. The most well-known one is the Lights Out effect, which is my least favorite one because it makes the okay levels of Commander Yamark and Rainy Turtleoid really unfun, since you could barely see anything. It's like having blind mode on, without the blind mode stuff. There are ones like the Metal Blocks in Blaze Heatnix, the Fireballs in Blizzard Wolffang, and the Dragonflies in Shield Sheldon and somewhat Blaze Heatnix. There are also alternate paths that you could take to optional bosses. I always found these paths of the game to not be all that interesting whatsoever. They are just 1 minute of the same level, even shorter sometimes, with nothing interesting going on. These levels fucking suck. Embrace and accept. Okay, now we can talk about the bosses. The bosses in this game are mostly boring, with the exception of one robot. robot. Most of the time with these bosses, I can just stand there and shoot them till they die. Commander Yamark, Metal Shark Player, Blaze Heatnix, and Blizzard Wolfang. Ground Scaravage is basically the same, except you just move back and forth. Rainy Turtleoid is actually a good boss because he has protection on him, but when you break it, Spark Mando Syndrome has never been more fucking boring. The only robot I could say is somewhat challenging is Infinity Maginian. He tries to overwhelm you by creating copies of himself that flood the screen with these bubbles, while also shooting projectiles towards you. I find this fight mainly annoying to deal with, and try to fight him last if I can. But yeah, I prefer the bosses in Mega Man X5 by a large margin. The special weapons in this game are another story. The only special weapon I used, unironically, is the Yamar option. It's a shield type weapon where you can shoot projectiles from the dragonflies, and the charged version isn't bad whatsoever. A top tier Mega Man X special weapon if I do say so myself. But I could care less about the other weapons. I used Guard Shell once to have X for an endgame boss, and the other weapons if the boss was weak to them, but that's really about it. Now, some of Zero's techniques are just the special weapons like the Yamar option and Guard Shell. To be honest, I never really used Zero's guard techniques. They have very weird button mappings, so I can never get used to them. The exceptions are Izui-san and Guard Shell. Izui-san is a move that spins you around in place, but if you use the move on a destructible platform, then Zero's animation won't be finished and he will have invincibility frames. This means that Metal Shark Player's stage is less annoying to go through, since Zero ignores the spikes enemies that are plastered all over the stage. Guard Shell is one that I used a lot in this recent playthrough, since there is a strat that is well known about it that I never really used before. When you activate it and attack someone, while it's touching the shell, you will do so much damage that Zero becomes God. Look at what this strat does to Rainy Turtleoid. This is disgusting, and I love it. While it is cool that this is a thing, I do these strats because I want to avoid the frustration that comes with these levels and the boredom of the bosses. It's not fixing the game, it's to avoid the game, I'd argue. Now that we have done that, we could talk about the item game in Mega Man X6. Mega Man X5 introduced some trends that would carry on over to Mega Man X6, one of them being the parts system. The parts system in Mega Man X5 was a good idea. It just came with the problem of needing to know when you will get the part at the end of the stage and being hindered by the type of part that we would get by the choice when you beat the level. X6 does make an improvement on principle. That's the key word, principle. X6 brings back rescuable Reploids from a few stages in Mega Man X5, but they are in all of the stages. Now, this isn't a problem inherently, but there are two problems with this. The first problem is that you don't know which Reploid has a part or not. There are no special indicators telling you that they have a part or not, and it just makes trying to get all the parts very tiring. It also doesn't help that some parts can only be gotten if you take the Zelda neutral B paths for the speedster parts, and worst of all, the jumper parts. That can only be gotten if you get the right path on Ground Scaravage stage that, may I remind you, is RNG based, so you can get a run of the stage where it doesn't show up. But even if you could find a Reploid with the part you want, you can still not get it because of the second problem being the Nightmare Virus. The Nightmare Virus can attach itself to a rescuable Reploid and turn it into a lifeless robot that only tries to do what the Nightmare wants it to do. You can't save it because it's kill or be killed. Once you kill it, you only get the Nightmare Soul instead of the part that you probably wanted. These two problems are the reason I think the part system is still not at its full potential than it could have been. I will say that I do like that you have to defeat the Nightmare Virus to get the souls to allow you to use the parts that you want to use, instead of getting you all 5 slots at the beginning of the game. Now let's get into those other items that you probably are more interested in talking about. There are still sub-tanks, the weapon tank, the EX tank, the heart tanks, and the armor capsules. They all do about the same thing as they always do ever since the beginning of the PlayStation's Mega Man X games, but it's important to talk about them for routing purposes. I made it no secret that I like routing the first 4 Mega Man X games, and that the 5th one is not as bad as people say it was in terms of the backtracking. But in X6, the backtracking is the worst in the series so far. The only stage I can think of where there is no backtracking in it is the one that doesn't exist. Almost every stage in this game needs armor, the alternate path, or a nightmare system on it to make sure you got the armor capsule or the heart tank, or sometimes both. You need the Nightmare system on Blaze Heatnix and Blizzard Wolfang to get the necessary items like the armor capsule or the heart tank. You need to take the alternate path in Infinity Maginian and Shield Sheldon to get the necessary items you need. You need the blade armor to get the sub tank and Commander Your Mark. You need God to bless this hellish game to get the armor capsule or heart tank and ground Scarevich's stage. All of these factors are another reason why I don't like playing this game. Now, for something that is actually good, the two new armors in this game. At the start of the game, X gets the Falcon armor, but like with the Force armor and Mega Man X5, it's downgraded, which is fine by me since the flying was kind of busted in Mega Man X5. If you get the capsules in Commander Your Mark, Ground Scaravich, Shield Sheldon, and Infinity Maginian, you get the blade armor. This is one of my favorite armors in the series, hands down. It has a respectable charge shot, decreases the amount of special weapon consumed, halves the damage that you take, but the best part about the armor is the Mach Dash that comes with the foot parts. The Mach Dash allows you to be suspended in the air and pick a direction you want to dash in. It's like the foot parts in Mega Man X3, but they got injected with steroids. Love me the blade armor, easily a top 3 armor for me. The next one is the shadow armor, which you get after getting the capsules at Blaze Heatnix, Blizzard Wolfang, Randy Turtleoid, and Metal Shark Players stages. First, I think this is one of the coolest armor designs in this series. It's straight up just a ninja Mega Man X. It's pretty fucking based if I do say so myself. But I do like this armor by itself. The head parts make X more proficient with the Z-Saber, the body parts are the same as the blade armor, the arm parts give you shuriken-like shots that are very cool, but not my preferred way of shooting enemies, and the foot parts allow X to stick to the walls without sliding down and walk on spikes. This armor is a better Gaia armor from Mega Man X5. While I do like these armors, I will say I still don't like the system of needing to collect all the capsules for them before you can use them. But easily these are superior armors from the previous game, except for the Force armor. I still love you. But man, talking about how bad the game part of Mega Man X6 is had made me forgot that this game has a story. I don't really have much to say on the story of Mega Man X6, since the main problem that keeps me from being engaged with it is that the translation for it is really bad. I think most Mega Man fans can agree on that, since even as someone who played it for the first time back in 2020, knew that there were typos, missing words, and just straight up weird sentences that just kept me from taking it all seriously. But I do think removing the translation from all of that, there is some interesting stuff in Mega Man X6. I really like the backstory of Gate, a Reploid who was able to do something that was seemingly impossible, create Reploids whose data could not be analyzed. This caused his peers to get jealous and sabotage the Reploids he created, or label them Mavericks, which got them disposed of. This caused Gate to quit his research team. Some of the creations still live, but they committed suicide to escape the guilt of having hurt the reputation of Gate. This is something that is really interesting. I also think the idea of the Zero Nightmare is interesting. Zero in X5 had the Sigma virus in him, so that may have caused the public to hear about this Purple Zero and think that he has come back to wreak havoc on the planet again. There are some interesting things that are in this game, or that could have happened, but even though there are things I really like in the story of Mega Man X6, it's not really gonna save the game for me. I've said this in my Mega Man Extreme Duology video, but the story in a Mega Man game is not gonna make the game good. It has to be the gameplay first and foremost. Almost everything else builds upon that. No better example than my favorite Mega Man game, Mega Man X4. The story in Mega Man X4 is poorly told and hot garbage, but I don't care about that because it has some of the most fun stages I've played in a 2D platformer with my endless replayability with it. I played it like 200 times on the Legacy Collection, for God's sake. Even with an interesting idea of a story like Mega Man X6 is, the translation is shit, so we're most likely gonna notice that first and foremost over the interesting stuff. If you thought the story of X6 really did for you, I am glad it did, but the gameplay, level design, item system, and unbalanced difficulty keep me from liking this game. But, at long last, we have reached the endgame of Mega Man X6, and it is something else entirely. After you beat the 8 Nightmare Investigators, Gate invites you to his laboratory, and you then realize that you enter hell when you see this section right here. And this is only the first obstacle on the stage. Now, why am I making such a big deal over these spikes right here? Well, it's because they go against Mega Man X design philosophy. Mega Man X1 through X5 were games that can be beaten without any upgrades, but in this section, you need either the Shadow Armor, which is the choice I personally go for, Ice Burst with the jumper parts, or 0. The jumper parts can only be attained by the Nightmare system. You need to get all 4 capsules of the Shadow Armor, and you need to unlock 0. If you don't have any of these, then you are fucked 6 ways to Sunday, and that's not going to church. But it doesn't stop there, because there is a Fire Rising segment that locks your controls, and if you don't know that they unlock almost when the flames start moving, then you will die. This is literally what Jay's reviews would call what an idiot I am for my inability to predict that. I will say this, the stage has one of the few tracks I love in this game. Now, we hit the boss of the stage, Nightmare Mother. She is an unpredictable boss with her choosing to go clockwise or counterclockwise. She also has a huge ass health bar, and when it reaches the halfway point, she becomes faster than a Monster Energy drink filled person on crack cocaine. It just makes this boss forever to beat and annoying to deal with. We then reach Gates Lab 2. This one is just kind of annoying to deal with. You have to take care of the totems that were in Ground Scaravege's stage, those plus the nightmare viruses that are all over the place, and spikes. It makes it an overwhelming level to go through. Once you reach the boss gate, you fight one of the most frustrating bosses in any Mega Man game, Hymax. I feel like everyone and their great grandmother knows about this boss. He does 3 things in this fight. The first thing he does is put up a shield so that it is near impossible to hit him. Then he will do 2 things. He will either charge at you or he will send his ball lightning towards you. God forbid if you destroy his shield. Dad, I think I'm in hell. In the opening stage of the game, you couldn't do anything to him. But in this game, you have special weapons now. To attack Hymax, you need to first hit him with a charge shot and then hit him with a special weapon. Now, the problem with this is that sometimes the special weapon just won't hit Hymax. Even if you are so close to him that COVID laws would be broken. I gave up a good chunk of the way through losing to his annoying ass that I decided to just use this strat where you mock dash while having guard shell on, since if you do it right, you will do the most damage to him. For 0 with this boss, all you have to do is attack him with a special technique and then whatever the fuck you want. Not as bad as X, but still a drawn out and frustrating boss to deal with. Now, you want to go back to the stage elect? Too fucking bad, because we are now at Gates Lab 3. I am shocked that this got the pass. Now, depending on who you play as in this level, you will get 2 different paths. There's the X path, where you have a platforming section that is similar to Rainy Turtloid's level with the rain that slowly drains your health away. Just destroy the little eye things to destroy the main weather machine. Not too bad since there's no annoying nightmare system if you get it. If you're playing as 0, then you will get the worst path in my opinion. You have the motherfucking crushing blocks from Metal Shark's player stage.
Loud. Requesting permission to kill.
I think we all know which path is the least torturous. At the boss gate, you reach the main man himself, Gate. And... oh, good fucking lord. Every Mega Man fan knows about this boss, and for all of the wrong reasons. Gate only does 2 things in this fight. He either floats towards the location you are at, or just decides to actually fight you and shoots these ball lightning of many colors at you. Each color does a different thing. One drags you closer towards it, one summons nightmare souls, and one makes this fight utter hell. The problem with this boss is that there is no consistency with it whatsoever. I swear to Christ, I have had this motherfucker just float towards me for a full-on minute, and it was just the most brain dead fight I have ever done in a Mega Man game. To do damage to Gate, you need to destroy his ball lightnings. When that happens, it splits into 3 balls going both left and right. When it hit Gate, it does damage. The problem is that it also does damage to yourself. What were these developers smoking for real? Okay, now that you defeated the sin of game design, Gate starts up his backup plan of resurrecting Sigma, who then just straight up kills Gate. That is being for real. This leads us to the final level in the game, Gates Lab 4. You go down where you will most likely die because the camera is too high for you to see anything below you, and you are then greeted with the boss rush. In the Mega Man X5 video, I said that it was the worst boss rush up to that point, but I honestly think I would take that boss rush over this one. At least with the bosses in X5, they were engaging, but in X6, they are the most brain dead or frustrating bosses that were in the entire game. But after that, you get a little bit of platforming before you reach Sigma. Now, one thing I do like about this is that Sigma is not completely revived story-wise, since he looks like a zombie. But other than that, the first phase is very boring. All I did for this phase was just stand there and spam the shoot button. It is as brainless as the game. Then we reach the second phase, where you actually play the game. Unless you're Zero. He spawns enemies around you and does laser attacks towards you. You can only hurt him when his mouth is open. With X, it was a somewhat decent boss, just massively destroyed by the Giga attack. But with Zero, you just use a Zuizon on this platformer and bada bing bada boom, you beat the boss without trying. A winner is the game cause it's shit. There are 3 endings in this game. If you beat the game with X without saving Zero, you get an ending where X saves Gate, and he and Elliot talk about Zero in the future, while Zero shows up and leaves the fighting to X. If you save Zero, you get an ending where X and Zero save Gate, and they continue their Maverick hunting duties. Then if you beat the game as Zero, you get his ending, where he decides to put himself to sleep to try to get rid of the Maverick virus inside of him, which I think was meant to tie into the Mega Man Zero games, but I can't really tell. I don't know which of these endings is canon or not, but I'm gonna say it's the X without Zero ending for reasons I could explain in another video. Thank God we are done here. Ending monologue time. Mega Man X6 is easily one of the worst games I have ever played. This is a game that is held together by popsicle sticks and glue, and it shows. The levels each have problems, from the okay ones to some of the worst stages I've played in a platformer. A gimmick that makes the game worse and more unenjoyable, and the worst endgame in a Mega Man X game by far. And it all leads to this game. And if you do what most people do when they replay this game and break it in half, I'd argue that it makes the game boring, because there is no challenge to be had whatsoever. While there are some things in this game that I do like, it doesn't save the fact that this is one of the most frustrating games I have ever played. I know that there are people out there who think that Mega Man X7 is the worst Mega Man X game out there, but I'll explain why I prefer X7 over X6 when I get to the X7 review later this year. I hope this video explains why I think Mega Man X6 is one of the worst games I have ever played, and I hope that I never play it again. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and as always, have a nice day.